Radio for the masses.
Headline edition, July 8, 1947. The Army Air Forces has announced that a flying disc has been found and is now in the possession of the Army.
If the game is rigged, change the game. Game changer.
I occasionally think how quickly our differences worldwide would vanish if we were facing an alien threat from outside this world.
This is Fade to Black with your host, Jimmy Church, on the Game Changer Radio Network.
All right, welcome. How you doing? Fade to Black. Yeah, man. Here we go. Today is Monday, April 27th. Can you believe it? 2026. Another month of shows in the books. Let's do this, man. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. This week on Fade to Black, got a short week this week. Tonight, Chris Ramsay is on with us. Very excited. The show was called Area 52 on F2B. I like the way that just rolls off the tongue. That's tonight. Tomorrow night, Paul Hynek back with us, and we are going to be talking about the DMT hyperspace, one of my favorite subjects. We're going to get it on tomorrow night. And then Wednesday night, filmmaker Ron James is back with us. He's got a new film out. I don't know if I'm in it or not. He's got so much old video of me, he can just insert something starring Jimmy Church. Anyway, we're going to be talking about his efforts in Washington, D.C. and disclosure. So that is Wednesday night. Thursday night, we are off air. I am traveling. Yeah, the Contact Modalities Expo. I'm headed to Chicago. Well, I'm flying into Chicago. The conference, as you know, is in Wisconsin, right up there across the border in Delavan, Wisconsin. I'll be there this weekend. Very excited about this. Me being from, I did an interview earlier today on Q101 in Chicago, talking about the conference. And Brian, great interview and stuff. But anyway, you know, he goes, so what is it, man? What is it about the Midwest? What is it about Chicago? I said, look, I'm from there. I was born there. And it set me on my path. And he goes, yeah, man, but you're in Hollywood. Oh, okay, listen to the interview. I don't want to give it all away. I said, yes, I'm in Hollywood now, film, TV, and everything that I do for my career. It's all great. It all happened because of the strange stuff that went down to me, down with me in Chicago. I love the Midwest. I love that part of the country. It is, I'm going home to hang out with everybody, my friends, and it's going to be amazing. So the schedule for, I want to get Chris in here, so I'll make this really quick. The schedule has just been posted for the Contact Modalities Expo. Yes, I'm hosting all weekend. I'm doing an actual presentation on Friday. I think I'm doing something Friday night, and then Saturday and Sunday. So the full schedule is up, and you can go and check out everything. A fantastic event. I'm very excited. Today's Monday. Thursday, I'm on a plane headed to Chicago. Very excited. All right. So, go and check out that interview on Q101. You guys listen to Fade to Black enough. I don't know if there's anything new in it, but it's just fun to do live terrestrial radio, man. It's really cool. All right. Where am I at? Let's just get started. Yes, my next event is this weekend, May 1st through the 3rd in Delavan, Wisconsin at the Lake Lawn Resort. And that schedule I was just talking about, it's right there at Contact Modalities Expo. That's XPO, not EXPO. XPO, contactmodalitiesexpo.com. Links for it are below over on our website and throughout social media. Very excited about the show tonight. Chris Ramsay is with us. Area 52. I know you guys have been checking out his stuff. It's great. I like his style, but he's also a magician, right? So tonight we get to talk about that, right? Illusions and UFOs. You can't get any You just can't, man. You can't get any better than that. So we're going to do all of that tonight. I want to know the basic stuff here. Lots of success has been happening for Chris in Area 52, but how did he get here? Right? How do you go from being a puzzle expert to interviewing some of the best and brightest in this community and what he has learned? We're going to do all of that and much more tonight with Chris. The links for his YouTube channel, which is doing really well at the moment, are below. Again, over on our website and throughout social media. I would like to welcome for the first time to Fade to Black, Chris Ramsay is right there. Chris, good evening, young man.
Thanks for having me. Amazing intro. I really appreciate all the kind words and what's up to your audience.
I read one thing off of your bio. The rest of it was just, puzzle expert. That's what I got.
Yeah, nice. Aren't we all in this space, though?
Yeah. Oh, here's the thing. That's a great place to start. I was thinking about, working on some notes for this weekend and presentation. And I was thinking about my childhood. So I'm going to drop this on you. I'm going to give you one of my experiences and then see if that meshes with you. All right. Check this out. I go from Chicago, specifically Mundelein, Illinois. I'm a freshman in high school, and I move to Panama, Central America, third world country. And what a shock to the system. I'm a kid. I'm a baby. I'm 14. And when I get there, my mom and dad are both in the Army band. And so as soon as I landed, and I'm in this foreign country for the first time, I'm a kid. My mom, my stepmom and my dad are leaving on tour with the Army band. They're going to go to South America for a month. So they have me stay with the wife of one of the musicians in the Army band. They can't leave me alone, for a month. They should have, but they didn't. And the next day, this is a woman I've never, I just met. And this is what she says to me. She goes, "Okay, I just borrowed a van from the church, and we are going to go and pick up a baby that I just adopted." Okay. All right. Let's go.
Yeah, just like every other Tuesday.
Yeah, right. So we jump in this van and we drive to the slums of Panama City. I was just 2 days before, I'm in Chicago at the Westfield shopping mall, right? 2 days later, I'm in the slums of this and I'm in shock. And we pull up to this tall apartment building, and it didn't have concrete in front or parking. It was mud, right? And and we pull up and she turns to me. She goes, "Okay, I'm going to leave the keys in the van. Lock the doors. I'll be right back." I'm like, what is going on? She walks into this, I'm alone sitting in this van with the doors locked, and people are starting to surround the van. And I was tripping. They didn't have torches or pitchforks, but it was close. I could feel it. And the crowd was getting bigger and bigger. This white American kid sitting in this van right in front of this apartment building in the slums of Panama City. So anyway, 15 minutes go by. I'm freaking out, and she comes running out of the doors with this little baby, and she's yelling, "Unlock the van, start the van, unlock." She's yelling, "Start the van." I'm like, what? And I unlock the door, I start the van, and she jumps in and hands me this baby. And I'm holding this like a little, I don't know, month old, little tiny baby. She throws that thing in reverse, blah, in the mud, pulls out. The crowd is chasing us, and we get out of there. All right. This is what I learned from that. I'm holding this baby. She's driving this van through Panama City, and I'm holding it. It's like, did you adopt this or did we steal this baby? You know, what's going on? So anyway, that experience at the age of 14 taught me this: the world is not what we have been told. You go from the United States to that at my age overnight, like in a 24-hour period. It was a shock to the system. And from that point forward, I made it my life's journey to try to figure out what's really going on, because what we're told, what we're taught, what we see, that's all, I'm going to say it, sleight of hand. Right?
Very interesting.
Yeah.
That.
So I'm going to, but now I want to throw that back at you, because this is your journey now. What has taken you on this path of trying to figure out what is going on?
I've always had an inquisitive mind. Ever since I was a kid, I was always very curious. My father was in the Canadian Armed Forces, and so we moved around a lot. Like, I went to like maybe 10 different schools in my lifetime, right? So I'm jumping around, going from base to base and country to country, from Germany to Canada, back and forth, and forced to integrate over and over again prior to the internet, right? So you're not keeping any friends. It's you're in the school, you're meeting new people, and then they pull you out, you're into another school, and you got to start over. And this happened over and over again. And so you quickly learn to sort of fend for yourself, and you quickly learn the ins and outs of sort of how society functions in these small little microcosms and how to navigate that. And it's always made me really curious about psychology, about the nature of interaction, how I can go from being bullied at one school to being the popular kid at the other school, and I haven't done anything differently. And so, you know, these things really opened up my eyes to human perception and human behavior. And I think that curiosity kind of stayed with me throughout my life. And eventually, well, I remember like the first initiation into the unknown was watching Fire in the Sky when I was like 9 years old.
That'll do it.
Yeah, that'll do it. And when you're 9, not a movie you should be watching. But I had an older brother who was into horror movies, and he would always watch, and you know, he's like, come watch this with me. And I was shocked. I was obviously shocked seeing the disclaimer at the beginning of that movie that said, this is based on a true story. That rocked my world, because now I have an adult telling my young, impressionable mind that aliens are real. Without a doubt. This is based on a true story. So this is truth. This is what I'm told. And so I'm like, okay, well, this is new to me. I always thought, you know, monsters were monsters and ghosts were ghosts, but this is real apparently. And getting to, you know, the bit in the movie that is obviously over exaggerated, but the alien presence who abduct him, beam him, take him aboard, and then perform these wild things on him, scare him, and then drop him off and leave. And there is this moment in that movie where I was like, well, where's the resolution here? Like, where's the resolve? Well, do they come back? Do they tell us why they did? Like, where are they from? Is there a part 2? Like, what's going on here? And we never got that satisfaction in that movie. And it bugged me. And it bugged me that they could just do that and not answer for it, and that no one else really cared about it. Everyone was like, oh, let's just move on from that and let's watch the next movie. And I'm like, hold on, this is wrong. There's something terrible here that we need to look into. And this is adults saying aliens are real. It should be a bigger deal than it is. Mm-hmm. And so that really sparked my interest for the unknown, and subsequently watched, you know, everything I could, whether it was Leonard Nimoy or Unsolved Mysteries or, you know, X-Files. I would just absorb anything I could that was related to some type of unexplainable phenomenon. I think eventually that allure into the mysterious brought me towards magic. And I was always fascinated and enchanted by magic, by mystery. And I also had a very sort of practical, logical reasoning mind. Like I would reverse engineer things. I would try to, mainly from, trying to understand my situation constantly, to being like, all right, how can we adapt here? How can we figure this out? And when I was presented with, I remember watching David Blaine's Street Magic in 1999, which really blew my mind, because he just, with a deck of cards, was able to, get these crazy reactions, and people, they couldn't figure out how he did anything. It seemed impossible. So I'd rewatch it when it came on TV. I remember getting the DVD when I could, and just sort of reverse engineering how he did all those card tricks, and then practicing them on my friends, and that quickly became, for me, a social lever into being accepted. And it was a shortcut into breaking the ice with people.
Can I ask you a question? And then I want you to move on. Are you suggesting that David Blaine is performing card tricks? I think that shit is really magic.
It has to seem that way, of course.
That's what I'm saying. He's that good, isn't he?
Yeah, he is. Yeah, definitely. He is the Houdini of our time. He is known for his endurance stunts. So the card tricks are what put him on the map. But really, what he puts his body through and his mind through with the stunts that he's done is really legendary. I mean, no one's ever going to fill those shoes. So David Blaine is definitely somebody I looked up to, and was fortunate enough to hang out with David a few times and meet him and talk to him, and sort of, we share the same friend groups. And my love for magic became my love for human psychology and how the mind works, and how we're all cut from the same cloth on a very fundamental level when it comes to perception. And
now I know magicians, they've got their codes, and I get that. I respect that. I do. And it's frustrating for the rest of us, because we want those.
For some of you.
Yeah. Yeah. So, right. But if you're hanging out with David, or we're talking about David, but another magician, and privately, do you guys share those secrets?
Oh yeah, all the time. Yeah, it goes to that.
Really?
Well, yeah, it's talking shop. Like, do you like, when you hang out with musicians? What do you guys talk about? Right? You talk about.
Oh, we don't talk. No, guitar players don't share shit with each other. No,
really? No. Well, I'm sure if you went to like a guitar players convention, there'd be a lot of guitar talk.
They play with their back to the audience, man.
Well, it's a little bit different. There are, we do. There are some things we do reserve between a small select group of magicians, but mostly it is a community. And so once a year I go to a lot of conventions, a lot of magic conventions in the last like decade and a half. Mm-hmm. And I've sort of started my own with a group of friends, and we sort of recruit the best magicians in the world. And there's 13 of us every year in this small little spot in Spain. We rent a house and we spend 10 days there. And we just hang out and we share things, and we really just jam and on the ideas that we're working on, and see, how we can improve it collectively, and just kind of share the craft that we do, that we like, that we enjoy.
I really dig that. I do. I'm glad that you gave me that answer. I can only imagine how cool it would be for, somebody that you respect come up to you and go, okay, man, I've been watching you. You got me. What's going on? And then you're able to share that, and then watch their frustration trying to get it down. Right?
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of different facets to magic. There's, different branches and branches upon branches of, micro sort of directions that you can take it into. But for the most part, like, my fascination was always in sleight of hand and mentalism. And these are things that I really looked into quite a bit. And I surrounded myself with just the best in those fields, who are able to teach me some things.
Yeah, a really good somebody that I've got friends that are magicians. I've always respected card work. I mean, that is just something that is on another level, and I'll call that like real magic, because it's a craft that you have to just over and over again. You're never going to master it, but you're going to get really, really good at it. And because I can't do that, you know what I mean? I've tried. It's like I don't have that gift. But those that do the good card work, wow, I love it. I love it. Now, okay, now let's talk about that sleight of hand. Do you think that some of what we are seeing in the skies is magic, is Operation Blue? What, you know what I mean? That is some kind of hologram or something that is created to take our eye off the prize.
Definitely. I think that goes without saying, but I also think on so many different levels. So let's talk about magic with a C, right? Which is the performative sort of illusions, the sleight of hand, the misdirection, showmanship, suggestion, all that stuff. And there are so many layers to a trick that the more layers you add, the harder it is to deconstruct, right? Because you're canceling out methods, the more layers you add. So sometimes adding a lot of those layers in a perfect storm can look like a miracle. And there's no possible explanation for it, although you just witnessed it, right? So a magic trick is very similar to a sighting or to an experience in that way, in that there is something impossible that you're witnessing. Now, as a magician, it's my job to create the impossible, to make something so hard to figure out that you give up, that you go, there's no way. That is impossible. If I can't do that, I'm not a magician, right? So we're given problems. We're given effects, as we call them. So, for instance, somebody might come to me and be like, hey, we're trying to vanish somebody on the street, but they're going to be surrounded. It'll be daytime, and we want them to vanish gradually. Like that's the effect, right? And now magicians have to reverse engineer the method using previous methods that are available to them, and perhaps some new ones that are that we come up with, and using human perception, using technology, using sleight of hand, using all these different modalities, we're able to create that illusion, right? So if you were to tell me, what is that thing in the sky? As a magician, I can come up with a method, but that doesn't mean that that's the method. And I think that's where a lot of magicians get hung up, and they sort of stop there. And that's where I'm not satisfied, because I do believe that there is something to this phenomenon. Absolutely, in my mind, without a doubt. Not even believe. I won't even say believe. I will say I know without knowing that there is something, right? And I can explain pretty much everything. If you make the Empire State Building disappear, then something in the sky can be done in the same fashion. Correct. Yeah, absolutely. And that should never be ruled out, but it should also never be considered the only option. And a good trick has multiple methods. And, I'm reminded of David Copperfield when he used to tour the world. He used to have like 6 methods for an illusion, just in case someone, and this happened a few times, but someone locally would make a big stink about how he did something, and they would print it in the local newspaper prior to him arriving. Well, he would show up with the same illusion, very confident, and say, oh, you think that's how I did it? We'll come up on stage and, come see for yourself. And the person would check, and they would not find, to their satisfaction, the method that they had proposed, because David would switch it out for another method. And so it's always being one step ahead. It's knowing just this library of different things that we have access to through practice and performance that we can adapt to any situation. And, it does come in handy with the UFO space. Absolutely.
Now, in your it's short by entertainment standards, Area 52, since its inception to now, what have you learned, and how has it changed you?
Yeah, I've learned a lot. As I'm sure you have throughout the years of studying this. It's been, shift over shift over shift for me ontologically. And it's broadened my perspective. You know, I come from a world of skepticism. As a magician, most magicians are very skeptical. And a lot of magicians, majority I would say, are atheist and just non-believing in anything and just outright, nothing at all. Everything's explainable through science and trickery. And, I'm reminded of James Randi and all this and Penn Jillette. And I was not sort of, I guess at one point I was kind of staunchly in that direction, but I've always kind of leaned into more agnosticism when it comes to this stuff. And sort of, I don't know. We'll see. Let's have a look. And what I've learned is that, to my satisfaction, I think magic with a K certainly exists within magic with a C. And that's something that I'm really quite passionate about. And I think kind of overlaps into the fundamental nature of reality at some level. And as a magician, it's a really interesting place to be able to be. I'll give you an example. Magicians, when we perform, every now and then, a miracle will occur. We won't let the audience in on whatever that miracle is. We'll play it off as if it was meant to be, because that's our job. It's supposed to be impossible. So in the heat of the moment, in the throes of performance, normally during the end of the night, when you're feeling it, you're on fire, there's a good vibe, you're in a flow state, the audience believes you can do anything and nothing you could say is wrong. Like, you can just roll with the punches. As a musician, I'm sure you felt that too, where you're just like almost telepathically reading what the other musicians are going through. And you just know. There's a knowing, there's a feeling. You hope one of your guitar strings bursts just so you can riff and change it up. Like, nothing can stop you. And there are these moments when you attain a certain level of mastery in any craft, whether it's being a comedian, a musician, a magician, or what have you, where you enter this flow state. And during that flow state, what magicians will do is they'll take a chance, and for no other reason than to just, let's see where this goes. And there's a certain amount of ingredients. One is this stupid confidence that you have no business having. You have no safety net. There's no way out. Normally magicians have a ton of outs, and we just know, if this goes wrong, I'll just do that. No outs. Just go for it. Gut shot. The second thing is like this sort of audience.
That's so true, by the way.
Yeah. And then there's this audience Pygmalion effect. Is sort of the audience believes that you can do something. And you kind of you have this exchange with this audience where they just have this faith that you can get away with anything, right? That you're this person. And so you put those ingredients together in this flow state and this playfulness, and you just go for something. And it pays off more than it doesn't. I challenge anyone who knows a magician, or anyone listening now who is a magician, ask them, tell me about a miracle when you were performing, and tell me how you were feeling right before it happened, what the energy was like. Did you have an out? And they will check off all these things. So I asked my magician friends. I have a wide audience of magician friends. And in a day, I got 200 responses. I said, send me a miracle. And they all know this, because although we don't let the audience know, the second it's done, we go to our magician friends and we're like, you won't believe what just happened. Like, this was the most insane thing. And so we tell each other these things. And I've compiled this like massive list of miracles among my own that are just mind blowing. And this is coming from the most skeptical people.
Agnostic, pragmatic, black and white.
Yeah.
Yes.
They're like, it's, they'll say it was coincidence. But then I say, how many times have you tried something like this? And they'll go, I don't try it very often. How many times has it worked every time you've tried it? And they go, yeah, actually it works like maybe 50% of the time. You're like, that's some pretty good numbers. That's like lottery numbers, because these things are like guessing someone's passcode, or, just they're thinking of a name and you just know it. Like these type of things. Russell Targ actually experienced this in his early youth as well. He was a practicing stage magician. And I think Eric Wargo coined the term mixed mediumship, and it
Yeah.
happens to magicians on stage. And so magic with a K.
Okay. So what you are suggesting, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but it sounds like you are suggesting that there is a conscious or spiritual component to the universe that you are learning about that is outside of control, that is outside of the laboratory, that is outside of science, that there is something else in the great beyond.
I think that our brains kind of act as this quantum computer that can skew probability. That's what I think. And so when I think back to the Princeton Parapsychological Lab in the random number generator, how we're able to skew the ones and zeros, magicians play with probability. We have a deck of cards. There's 52 possibilities. We have, guess a name, it's all probability based. And so it seems like a really strong interaction mixed with a really strong intention, mixed with all the other ingredients seems to collapse the wave in that favor. I don't know if that's because it's the strongest intention in the room. And I don't know if I'm the only one experiencing that reality. And then there are a trillion other realities branch off from there. I don't know. But what I do know is that if you take these chances, they seem to work more than they don't. And it seems to happen in these states. And that's coming from a bunch of atheists, sort of, staunchly non-believing magicians.
Right. And I don't want you to do the dance. I want you to be really direct. Are you okay with that spiritual conscious component?
I don't, spiritual has a dogmatic connotation to it that I'm not super keen on, just because I don't want to put anything into a box.
Right.
But I do believe that there is some type of field, and that field behaves not by the rules that classic physics behaves. If you want to call it the vacuum or the quantum field or whatever, or 0 point, whatever that is, there is a field that acts outside of space-time, as I'm sure very smart people have looked into. But I think our brains interact with that field on a very subtle level on an everyday basis. Very, very, very subtle. Like, it's the subconscious that interacts with it. I know that Rupert Sheldrake talks about the morphic field.
Mm-hmm.
And, it to an extent, I think that these things are real. And I think that the phenomenon itself interacts with that field as well. And
they understand it. They understand that field.
Yeah, perhaps they created it. I don't know. Like, there's a billion possibilities, but I do think that we can skew probability through intention. And I think that maybe it might only be very subtle, just enough for you to go, that's a little bit more than a coincidence, or that's an odd synchronicity, or whatever that is.
A random number generator. And when you talk to those that work in this field and with random number generators and at the quantum level of things, they will tell you, Dean Radin is really good at this, right? They will tell you it's not a massive amount of disturbance that's happening. It's a lot of very subtle stuff. Right. And it's very small and very hard to measure. But when you compound that a lot, then you see the results. And that's why it's so hard to discount something like a random number generator that is supposed to be completely random. But if you're disturbing something at the quantum level, very slightly, but a lot of slight, then you're going to see that. And so I think you're right. Now, but that is something that also, Chris, has been talked about, whether it's Schrodinger and the double slit or entanglement or measurement or changing a matter state by looking at it. That's science fiction, woo-woo, crazy talk. But that's also the hard sciences and physics and how that stuff actually works. So the two are almost, our community and the science community are talking about the very same things, but they just haven't crossed into each other yet.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. I think we are on that backswing of the pendulum. If you look at the end of the 30-Year War and the beginning of the Enlightenment era in like the late 1600s, when the church separated from politics, and then ideas were traveling across Europe, and all of a sudden now the church is also separated from science, and now we have the beginning of the Invisible College. We have thinkers freely thinking about science, and they were so caught in this dogmatic way of thinking about religion constantly, and everything has to go through religion. They were just so sick of it that it separated. And when it separated on that one end of the pendulum swing, it was great. We had a boom. We discovered physics. We discovered like the most fundamental laws of to what we know, but the most fundamental laws at the time of our world and how things behaved and atoms and everything else. But then we get to the end of it, and now we're rounding off the edges of physics. We're not really finding anything novel. There's no more discovery. We're kind of just using the same thing and then stopping at that quantum spooky realm and saying, yeah, that's just the way it is. And now it feels like collectively we're all on the backswing and being like, well, maybe there was something to that stuff too. Maybe it wasn't all wrong. Maybe there's a lot of it, yes, that was, controlled and weird, but maybe there's some of it there through the thousands of years of meditation and just, enlightenment that we can glean from and we can build upon. And I think that we're getting back to that slowly, maybe not in my lifetime, but it certainly feels like that's the direction we're headed to.
Yeah. The world of physics is so hypocritical of itself in that physicists will say science is nothing but a string of corrections, and you have to have thick skin because whatever you do now, you're going to be proven wrong later. That's what we do. And so we must respect the world of science. And then they contradict themselves. Well, if ET is visiting this planet, they're violating every known law of physics. Well, wait a minute. Maybe you were wrong. Or maybe you still need to learn something here. Maybe if somebody's visiting this planet, they have a grip on something that we haven't figured out yet. Have you thought about that? You know what I mean? It's really strange, isn't it?
I absolutely agree. Those same people that are, the sort of gatekeepers of science, and the people who praise Einstein are the same people who denied Einstein. Do you know what I mean? Like those people, we only did the experiment with the atomic clock when Einstein was dead, long dead, and proved his, theory of general relativity. It was not proven while he was alive. And that goes to show you like what that community is and what every community is really. Change is hard for people to accept, and which is why change happens generationally. You got to wait till a generation dies out before the new generation, who wasn't raised with the same, belief system and dogma, gets to a new conclusion. And then they get attached to their conclusion, and their children's go, maybe that's not right. And they're like, shut up. And they got to die out. And,
right.
And it's a generational thing, which is why I think like we're getting there, but it might take a few generations, but I think that that's okay. I think we're in the right direction.
Okay, here's a yes or no question because I have a follow-up question. Okay? Yes or no? Is ET visiting this planet as I speak to you?
I can't answer that yes or no. I can't answer yes or no because that would assume that they're extraterrestrials, and I want the answer to be yes. I would love nothing more than to, have some galactic space brothers be here and interact with us. I think that would be amazing. The truth is, the deeper I dig into it, the more I start to begin to align with some of the things that were discovered or sort of proposed by people like Jacques Vallée and even Diana Pasulka, even, Grant Cameron, the idea that there is some type of control system that we are interacting with, that interacts with the subconscious, that interacts with us on a, consciousness level. And because it can infiltrate our consciousness, it can project itself into whatever shape or form it needs to achieve its agenda. And that means instantiating physically. That means, taking you out of your body. That means speaking to you in your mind, or showing up as the Virgin Mary, in Portugal in front of 60,000 people, or as a mass sighting in Phoenix. Who knows, right? It might just be one thing that we're interacting
everything,
with, or it might be everything. Yeah.
Right. So the answer is yes. You said yes.
Sure. Yeah.
You said it's okay to say yes.
I could say there is something. I don't believe it's nothing. Yeah.
Well, isn't that the fascinating aspect to this? With the size of the universe, the amount of life that must be out there is an infinite number. You can't, it's like an infinite's pretty big, by the way. Right?
Yeah.
It's an infinite number. So the variety of those contact modalities, right? The variety of that is also infinite. Why would one person's experience be the same as another? You're assuming that they are interacting with the same modality. And that's right. And then throw in interdimensionality or parallel worlds, or what a ghost may be or not. And are they the same thing? Throwing all this in, that's the part that is crazy, because most of the world is in a 3D thing, right? This is all that there is. So if there's something else beyond our normal reality, that's what we've got to try to figure out. But I believe that it's all connected. It just may be fundamentally one thing, but we're seeing a variety of it.
Yeah, that might very well be. And I hope that that's the case, because it's a lot easier to comprehend than, 1,000 species interacting with us with their own agendas, and then 1,000 agendas within a species. Who knows? I have like two schools of thought on the phenomenon. One side is sort of the practical side. So I look at it and I say to myself, okay, hypothetically, if we were able to bounce around the universe at will, okay, no propulsion, we could just disappear and appear wherever we wanted to. We're 1 billion years more advanced. We've solved that problem. Not a problem. So the one thing that we would start doing, the one thing that we're obviously starting to do now, we're looking at Mars for colonization and Moon and beyond, hopefully, right, to preserve the seed of consciousness, or the flame of consciousness throughout the universe, in case the sun burns out. Like, where humans going to be? We want to get out there. So knowing we have the technology to bounce around, we would probably end up mapping out trillions of exoplanets, right? Trillions of planets that have, in this galaxy alone, we have 40 billion planets that potentially have water, so that's life on some primitive level. So there would be trillions of these exoplanets to explore. Now, there's only one Earth. You're going to go to another planet. The gravity's going to be off, the oxygen, the radiation, the nitrogen, the plants will kill you, the allergens, something is going to be wrong to where you have to live in a suit or in a dome or in a bubble or underground. And so it's not really conducive to life. So instead of going to these planets and building domes and living, you're a very intelligent species. You might find the primitive species that already inhabit these planets and simply modify them genetically with your genes over time, so that they eventually become sentient and eventually become free thinking and become their own civilizations. You, every 1,000 years, drop off metallurgy or religion or agriculture, whatever you need to have them sort of grow. And then you'd probably inject different biomes from different planets, modify them, bring a plant from here, bring a cephalopod from there, and create this homeostasis, this stable homeostasis across all of these planets. And you would nurture them and help them to, attain a certain level of self-sufficiency. But you wouldn't do this yourself. That's a waste of time. You're this all-knowing being. You got other things to do. You would create an AI to do this, obviously. Obviously, that's the obvious answer. there would be an AI. And how would it do that? Well, maybe this AI would be some type of probe that they drop in the oceans, and it's self-sustaining. It's there as a sort of white blood cell for the planet. It acts as, if they're launching nukes, we're going to, we're just going to dispatch these. We're going to build them down here with the materials that we have. It's going to go out. It's going to zap. It's going to come back. And they've been doing that for thousands of years on every, planet. And it just kind of maintains this rhythm. And you notice that the only time we can sort of summon these things are one of two ways. Either one is simulating war or actual having war, detonating bombs, and all of a sudden they show up and apparently we shoot them down, which, by the way, if it was an intelligent species, they wouldn't let you do that. They're not fish, right? So you're summoning something else. You're triggering some type of response. And the second way is through love and intention and meditating, right? So it seems like what we're interacting with is some type of system. And that system might be extremely sophisticated. And it might also be interacting with us, on a very, with our consciousness. So that's the one school of thought that I have about this.
Is that part of what we are experiencing here?
I think probably like 50%. Like if you look at even abductions, the abductions are being taken place. It seems like a routine thing, right? You get taken out of your room, you get brought aboard a ship. They do things to your body, genetically, to your mind, but also, your reproductive organs. And then they get you up and they give you a tour of the ship, right? And they show you the beautiful things in the ship. And then they hit you with the most like diabolical end of the world stuff you've ever witnessed. And then they're like, and here you go, back to bed. Like what do you do? Why would I want to see any of that? And so it seems like a response from some perhaps synthetic sentience that was created to simply like give you, oh, this is what you do to humans. So you just give them this, just tell them this, and, mix up their DNA, come back for their kids, go back to the ocean, come back, do the same thing. It seems routine. It seems like some type of routine, and we're just given some cover story or some screen memory or whatever it is.
How long have you had these ideas and these theories? Is this something that you've extrapolated from guests and interviews, or was this something that you have always considered?
No, this is only the last few years of doing this, trying to put the pieces of the puzzle together and, coming up with like one worldview, which is really hard to do when you're, when the stories of high strangeness are so disparate and just so different, and it's one of the things I say, like, I won't assume that this is everything, that this is the whole phenomenon, but it can account for maybe up to 50% of what we're interacting with could be this type of system. And you look at, Patrick Jackson, talks about the sphere system, which is, along the line, similarly as some defense mechanism that was here, protecting us from something. And, all of that kind of fits neatly into this, but a lot of stuff doesn't fit. A lot of stuff doesn't fit at all. Yeah, the high strangeness stuff.
How have you honed your skills as a host and interviewer? I know that I did this. Anybody that's done this for a while has done this, where you look back at your early shows, which I've only looked at, maybe I've done 2,300 shows. Okay. You know how many I've watched? 2, right? Maybe parts of it. It'll throw you off your game. But when you go back and you look at that early stuff, you go, wow, okay, I've really developed my skills at this. There's a certain thing that you have to do. And also there's a responsibility as a host that you have to grasp, because everything fantastical can't be something that you jump in the deep end of the pool on. And you have to handle that correctly. Also, not only for yourself, but for your audience. How do you develop these skills, and have you, or do you not give a crap?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think that the best way to proceed with this topic in general is to not put yourself into a camp of sort of belief or disbelief or yes or no. Or I think that if you do that, you automatically create like this lens, this bias, whether it's believing or not believing. And so I try to take it as data and then applying that data to all of the other data that I've collected and cataloged, and then having a fluctuating level of conviction. And so that level of conviction it starts off really low. For the most part, for most things, it's very low still, but it's not zero. It might be 10%, 15, 20%. I might talk to somebody or read a document or see something with my own eyes that raises my conviction level over 50%, maybe higher. But then I might also have an experience later on that could explain that. So it might lower it by a few points. And I practice that a lot. And I try to teach that on the channel as well. You don't have to believe or disbelieve anything to just simply take in information. I think having that sort of dismissive attitude or that sort of yes to everything is a detriment to studying the phenomenon. It's so strange. It's so easy, like you said, to just go roll with the punches and end up over here. It's much more difficult to walk that middle line and to kind of just catalog things and not, I'm there to listen to people. And people have stories, and the things that they tell me, are important to them. And whether it's true or not, whether it's a lie or not, it's equally valuable. If you give me a piece of information that is a lie and I find out it's a lie, that's valuable information for me. So I'm not dismissive of anything. I encourage everybody to be vulnerable, open up, and let's talk about it all. Let's talk about the weird stuff, because maybe there's a connection here to be made that we haven't made before, and maybe there isn't. Maybe we just shelve it and move on. But it's also cathartic to talk about. I think a lot of people find solace in this community coming out, especially as an experiencer, where they believe something very bizarre and traumatic happened to them, and they just want to share that with someone who doesn't laugh at them. And I think that that's important to be able to give them that. But it's also important not to gaslight them into thinking that what they're saying is the truth and the gospel. So it is that, sort of playing that middle ground, but also, just kind of enjoying the ride and being like, all right, let's suspend our disbelief here and let's just have at it.
Yeah. Gaslighting gets you nowhere. If you're playing the long game, but if somebody lies to me, either on the air or on the phone or whatever, that's like, they're a canceled check. I can't, there's too many amazing people to talk to out there. That's it. And that's one of my hard and fast rules. I was watching, John Greenwald from the Black Vault, one of my dear friends and my neighbor and stuff. And I've known John for forever. I don't even know how long I've known him, but he just posted this video of Gallaudet, the Admiral, right?
I saw that.
Yeah, you saw it, right? With Kirkpatrick.
Yeah.
You saw that exchange?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. One of these dudes is lying.
Yeah.
Right?
It seems pretty cut and dry.
Right. Either you were in my office or not. Either you were there or that's what was going on between the two of them. And that's not good for the community, number one. But number two, this isn't an experiencer that is claiming abductions going up against James Randi. Right. That's not what we're talking about here. We're talking about two government employees, all right, going at it. And Gallaudet called him out. He went straight. I kind of dig the infighting, but good for Gallaudet in that, how do I say it? We don't see that kind of, let's take this to the mat confrontation going on with the government inside of and it just makes you wonder, is this what's going on behind the scenes? How much are we being misled? Because Tim literally said, dude, you're disinformation. Right?
Yep.
Those were the words that came out of his mouth.
Yeah, he said you lied.
Yeah. Yeah. What do you make of that?
Well, I don't know either of those gentlemen, but from what I can gather, it seems like Tim Gallaudet has sort of nothing to lose in that situation. Or sorry, everything to lose in that situation and nothing to gain. And it seems like Kirkpatrick has everything to lose. So put those things together. If Tim Gallaudet was telling the truth, that's what it would look like. And if Sean Kirkpatrick was telling the truth, I don't think that that's what it would look like. I think that, I don't know. It just seemed like reading the body language on that video, and how many times did he take a sip from that cup? Let's be honest. He
was just like,
this is, and he's very dismissive, and obviously, you can get a behavioral analyst to look at that, and there's red flags all over that interaction. We didn't really get to see Tim clearly, but you heard his voice. He was very passionate about what he was saying, and it was obviously very personal to him as well.
Yeah,
so that was
one. Yeah. When Tim said, now I don't know, I wasn't there. Okay, but when Tim said, he goes, "No, man. When I went to Arrow, you had already left." That's a pretty factual position to come from on Tim's point, and how Kirkpatrick tried to spin it. No, you came into my office. He goes, "You weren't there." And then he names the other guy that was there. I forget who it was. Mm-hmm. But that's a pretty strong position on Tim's side. And you're right. He's very passionate, and he was taking it very personal. And he said, "Dude, you lied, and I think you're spreading disinformation." And then what happened? It's like, okay, we're out of time. Gotta go.
Yeah, it did seem like there were people in the audience that were like trying to mitigate the situation. I think a lot of us would have been like, "No, let him go. Let him cook."
Dude, we can do some overtime here.
Yeah, exactly.
We're all okay with that.
And it's interesting too, because like a guy like Kirkpatrick, he had an open offer from Jesse Michaels. I think it was up to like $100,000 to go on his podcast and debate. And just crickets. Now, what kind of money is this guy making to say no to $100,000? That's insane.
Well, there's that part. Here's another thing. All right, let me ask you about this, and we'll take a break. I think that debates are bad media. That's a bad position to take. There are no winners, and there are people out there in the audience land that, oh man, you should have somebody on for a debate. You should have. That is
people love drama.
Yeah. It's just not a good position to take, especially especially as a host, because you can't control that. And I've never done it. And so to have, I don't know who Jesse Michael is or Michaels, so I don't know anything about him. But to invite that on, you're not going to win. There's nothing that is good that is going to come out of that.
I think I agree with you on this. I'm also of the school that I don't want to host a debate. I don't enjoy the idea of it because, as you said, both parties are not going to walk away feeling like they've accomplished something or they've learned anything. In fact, we just want to see people sort of get knocked down a peg. And that is, goes back to the days of watching gladiator fights. I much rather, but there's the other side too, right? Getting two people who clearly believe in the same thing, and this might also, but I do think there's something more fruitful on that end. Like we might come to a new discovery.
It's possible.
Yeah.
Like, I understand the dream part of it, of, something really great coming out of it. But Joe Rogan infamously brought on Graham Hancock and Michael Shermer for a debate, right? About Gobekli Tepe and what have you. And it was painful. It was painful on both sides. And
with Flint Dibble.
Yeah, with Flint.
Yeah.
So I was with Graham about a week later after this, and here's the thing. Graham was not prepared. He didn't have the tools, not factually, mentally. Okay. You got to train, right?
Yeah, it's a hot spot. Yeah, of course. Yeah. I don't enjoy being a part of a debate. I'm not, I would much rather side with the person I'm debating for just like intellectual gymnastics and be like, all right, let's say what you're saying is true. How would that play out? Let's just go down that road. I'd rather do that. Go with the flow of the water, not against it.
Yeah. Chris Ramsay's our guest. Chris, stay right there. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. We're going to take a quick break. More with Chris, Area 52 on F2B when we come back. Stay with us. Chris, stay right there. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. This is Fade to Black.
Subscribe to our YouTube channel to get your alerts and access to over 2,000 videos. Click that subscribe button right now.
Contact in the Desert is back. Come see a legendary lineup of iconic speakers, including George Knapp, Jeremy Corbell, Daniel Sheehan, George Noory, Whitley Strieber, Chris Ramsay, Dr. Diane Hennessy Powell, and many more. Join us in beautiful Indian Wells, California, May 28th through June 1st, as we explore infinite realms. Get your tickets now at contactinthedesert.com.
I'm heading back to Midwest. Contact Modalities XPO, May 1st through the 3rd, 2026, in Delavan, Wisconsin, at the Lake Resort. It is beautiful. This is a great conference right in the heart of the Midwest, where I'm from. I'll see you there. Just go to Contact Modalities XPO, that's XPO.com. I will be hosting and presenting once again at Contact in the Desert. That's May 28th through June 1st, 2026, the largest UFO conference in the world. Come and hang out with us June 23rd through July 1st. Tickets and everything else that you need is at contactinthedesert.com. Want to change your life? Want that paradigm shift? Then visit Peru with Brian Forrester and myself for the Inca Celebration of the Sun, June 23rd through July 1st, 2026. A full 10 days of visiting the country, all of the amazing sights, and of course, the celebration of the winter solstice. It's all simple to do. Go to hiddenincatours.com. Come join us for the Monty Python Scotland Tour, August 1st through the 9th, 2026. This is a once-in-a-lifetime event where you get to go to the castles from Monty Python and the Holy Grail. August 1st through the 9th, 2026. Just visit HaleyARamsey.com.
Watch Into the Vortex on Gaia TV. It's Fade to Black for the screen. Simple to do. Go to Gaia.com, search Jimmy Church, or click on the link below. Follow Fade to Black on Twitter at JChurchRadio. Get all of the show updates every single day. It's now called X, but who cares? Go to JimmyChurchRadio.com and become a Fadernaut. Get a membership. That's right. Everything is commercial free. You have access to downloads, and you get to call yourself a Fadernaut. River Moon Coffee, makers of the Fade to Black blend. Truly the best coffee on planet Earth. Just visit rivermoonwellness.com or the Amazon store. It's all simple to do. You can check out the Fade to Black blend, the Game Changer blend, or any of their Black Moon Wellness products. It's the only coffee I drink. It is the best, and it's Doc. Again, rivermoonwellness.com.
All right. Welcome back. Fade to Black. Tonight, Chris Ramsay, Area 52, is on with us tonight, live from Montreal. Great stuff. Hey, Chris, before I bring you in, you're muted. Unmute yourself. I just called you out, man, live on the air.
I wasn't sure if you could hear me backstage, so I always mute myself in case.
Oh, no. Anyway, moving on. You're a magician. You depend a lot on your eyes. Now, I don't do gotcha questions here. Okay. I don't do it with anybody. I've learned lessons with that, but I'm going to hit you with a gotcha. Okay. What does your eyes tell you about the Logan Paul video?
The Chuck Clark stuff?
Yeah.
I think it's interesting. I think it's really interesting. I unfortunately, deteriorated, weird angle, and apparently there's a lot more to that footage. Like the footage is longer than what we saw, right? So we got a glimpse of it. The story is interesting. I think if you compare the light emanating from the craft to what Gene Huff and Bob Lazar saw that evening when they went out to the test range, if you compare it to the photos of Carlos Diaz and those amazing photos of a UFO, probably, in my opinion, the best photos of a UFO ever taken. This guy was a photographer, so he knew to drop down the exposure, to see the craft, and you could see the ripples that were described by so many other witnesses. The fact that it's like surrounded by like almost lava, and it has this glowing effect. And there are so many other cases throughout history. We hear that this pulsating, warm glow in a disc, and it had all the characteristics. And so I think it's very compelling. It's even the one, I think 2 months after the Virginia incident in a neighboring town, there was footage that was featured in the New Moment of Contact movie by James Fox that looked exactly like this. Again, it's a disc that's glowing. And so I'm actually really high conviction on those types of sightings, way more than the daytime spheres of the discs. Those ones, the glowing ones, those pique my interest, I think, a little bit more.
Interesting take. I think it's a reflection from inside of the car on the windshield. That's what I think. But that's my take. Originally, when my opinions just don't matter here. But when the Chuck Clark conversation started so many years ago, my memory says that I saw the entire video. What I saw was not what I remember from so many years ago, and not what Fox described to me and others. So that part didn't line up. But that's my take on it. My frustration with it is this the best we got? Is this truly the best we got? The most amazing to me photographs, there's a lot of good stuff out there, but Rex Heflin in Santa Ana, California back in 1967. Okay, so you look at those, and those are Polaroids and so forth. That's pretty strong. That's pretty compelling, and you can triangulate and get distance and size out of that. Those are pretty incredible photographs. Go ahead.
Sorry, I was gonna say, have you ever seen Amaury Rivera's photos?
Yes, and all yes, and I dig looking at everything. It's just, I think we just need to continuously push this stuff into the center of the table, big pile of stuff, and say, okay, this is what we've got, and let's just look at it collectively here and not put everything on one or the other. Like this is the answer, because I just don't think my own sightings, and I wanted to get to this with you too as well. I've had a lot, and not to dwell into this, but I had an amazing sighting up in Washington with a large group of friends in the middle of the day. And this was the craziest thing it was just insane. And the object itself, Chris, was 14 miles away, because it was behind a mountain that we know the distance of the mountain. And it came out from behind the mountain. And so it's 14 miles away, and it was you could see it from 14 miles. It was giant. And I saw it in the binoculars first. Everybody else saw it after that. But it was a spinning can like object like this, and it's moving across the sky. I don't know, 500 feet tall, 400 feet tall, maybe a couple hundred feet wide. It was giant in the middle of the day with the sun reflecting on it, crystal clear, and not fuzzy, and I looked at it. The whole thing lasted for about 15 seconds. And then it just disappeared. And there was not a cloud in the sky. And I thought we were going to see this for an hour, from the speed that it was moving. And I thought, oh, this is great. And then it just disappeared. Now, that was my eyes, right? That was my eyeballs. This wasn't a photograph of somebody. This isn't a video. This is me seeing this with a group of friends. And it was incredible. Now, when I turn around and look at other images or stuff that is presented out there, I can't dismiss any of it. I won't. Just like the Chuck Clark video. I think it's a reflection on the car window, but what do I know? And if I'm going to share my experiences, I want people to have an open mind when I am trying to share it, just like I have an open mind with others with their experiences. You know what I mean? You just can't dismiss it that way. So have you seen something that you can't explain?
Yeah, I've had a few sightings. But because I can't explain them doesn't mean they're not conventional. That my sightings, however, I had a triangular craft sighting, 3 lights on each point with a light in the middle, fly overhead, very slowly, very low, go right over my head beyond the mountain range.
In Montreal, this is in Canada?
Yep, north of Montreal, yep. And it's actually a hotspot for that type of craft. Like there were I think 250 sightings in, I think a few 100-kilometer area over 10 years, right? So quite substantial. And the other one I saw, I was on the beach in Wilmington with Ryan Bledsoe. We had a sighting out there. I was just coming back. I just met Chris, and I filmed that documentary with Chris while I was out there at his place. And then we didn't actually get to skywatch. It was overcast. And so the next day we had it back, and Ryan felt a little bad. He's like, we didn't get to skywatch. And I was like, let's just go out, let's go to the beach and just hang out, and maybe we'll see something. And we go out, and all of a sudden this row over the water of 9 or 10 orange orbs just appear. Whoop. And we're all like, oh my God. I'm filming myself, by the way, because I'm talking about what we're doing, and I'm sort of vlogging the incident. And I'm looking at you see my face completely shift. I go, I get the fear of God in me. It's so scary to see something. Ryan described it as eldritch. It was it was like seeing a dragon, right? You're like, what am I looking at? And I turn the camera, you get a little glimpse of it, and it goes away. And so we start talking about this, and this couple from down the beach, they run up and they're like, what was that out there? Right. We're like, that was crazy, and the guy goes, oh, we called the Coast Guard because there's something wrong. Something's out there. Maybe it's flares. And we're all like, yeah, I don't think it's flares. they didn't go up or down. They were just appeared and they went away. And so we were all kind of like, I don't know, like what the heck that was. And then she starts telling us, this lady, she's with her husband. She starts telling us, she never told her husband this, that her father was on that very beach in the 1960s and said he got abducted with two of his friends when a bunch of orbs came from the ocean. And I got this on camera. We're talking to her and I'm like, this is crazy. Wow. I'm like, his dad too, you know? And so, you know, we connected there and then they left. And as they're leaving, I'm filming the water and I'm like, come on, give me something. Just one more thing. And I'm filming the water. And all of a sudden, this orb just appears over the water. This orange, it's unmistakable. We're all looking at it. They turn around, they see it. We're all seeing it. Lasts for maybe 8 seconds, and then it just goes out. And that was it. And I don't know what that was. Is that afterburn from like a military jet? Is that some weird reflection? I don't know what I'm looking at. It didn't seem like it was that high. Like it seemed like it was under the clouds. It was just over the water in the video, you can see kind of. And yeah, I don't know what that was. And that was the feeling that I have, I'd imagine, is the same feeling I would have if I saw a real, you know, unidentified object. I think that would feel the same. So I was grateful to have that feeling more than anything, because it helps me relate to what that might be like.
Yeah, the blood cells are a trip. I think Chris's first interview was here on Fade to Black, and I've known the family. I've known Ryan since he was a little kid. He's still a little kid. He's 30, right? But I've known them and I'm very close with the family for many, many years now. And just when I think that I know what's going on, that I understand the phenomenon through them, something else happens where I'm blown away. And for instance, last month, and I'm going to be with the whole family this week, very excited. I'm going to have the whole family on stage. So that's going to be great. I've always interviewed Chris on stage, you know, the two of us one-on-one. But this time around, we're going to have the whole family up with me, and it's going to be fantastic. But anyway, last month or the month before, I'm taping Beyond Belief, right? We're out in Denver, and Ryan is one of my guests. And so Ryan and I, we go out to dinner, and we come back. We're by ourselves, and we're in front of the hotel, just talking, just whatever, you know, just talking sports or whatever. But Ryan was looking at the sky, the night sky, the whole time. And I've known Ryan for a long time, and I've never had him do that for me. I'm telling you, he's like, yeah, the Lakers are going to be pretty good this year. Yeah. All right. Yeah. The playoffs are going to be pretty. He just was constantly, I go, dude, he goes, man, we're going to catch something right now. And I go, focus, man. I'm right here. And he would not, he was for 30 minutes, talk to me with his eyes at the sky. And what does that tell you, you know, about him and his family? This is, you know, I'm his friend. He's not showing off for me. You know what I mean? We're just sitting there having a conversation, and he looked at the sky the entire time. Wow. What do you make of that? When I say something like that, and knowing that we're talking about Ryan and you just hung out with him, that doesn't surprise you, does it?
No, I think there's genuine curiosity there, you know, in wanting to know what's going on. And yeah, I find myself doing the same thing a lot. If you don't look up, you're not going to see anything, right? And ask yourself, maybe people in the chat look up more often than regular people do. But if you ask the regular person, how many minutes have you stared at the sky today? It's going to be less than one. People don't stare at the sky. They look at their phones, they look at the road, they walk, you know, but just to stop and consciously scan the skies for a few minutes, that's not a thing that people do. And so, you know, it's no wonder the people who see things are the people who are looking. You know, we often say, oh, what a coincidence you're seeing things and you're in this UFO space. Well, yeah, that's my interest is up there. That's where I'm looking. So if you're not looking, you're not seeing anything. So I always make a habit of it. Like if I get out of my car, first thing I do is I take like consciously maybe 20 seconds to just look, see if anything's moving. See, you never know. That's how you're going to see something. I feel I get so many phone calls. I have a 800 number where people leave me messages that I play before the podcast, and I collect them all. I have like a system, a database of all the sightings, and I put them into categories. And I have a category that is sightings while smoking a cigarette. And I have no less than 30 people being like, I was outside having a cigarette and this craft goes right up black as night, couldn't see the stars, or like, all these sightings, and they're having a cigarette. Now, first you go, what is it about tobacco and you're like, oh no, they're in a relaxed, pensive state and they're looking up. They're just out there having a smoke and just staring at the night sky, and that's where you see things. And so there's no coincidence people having smokes are reporting sightings. I think it's an interesting thing.
That is cigarettes are ceremony.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
No, they are. Watch somebody that is smoking a cigarette, the way that they tap the pack, the way that they did, the way that they light. It's a ceremony that they repeated over and over again, and they are at a moment with themselves. So you're absolutely right with that. Looking up somebody that says that to me, and I've heard it too hundreds of times. I went outside to have a smoke, and man, you would not believe. No, I would actually. Others that are not going through that kind of ceremony, they're outside. What are they doing? They're looking at their cell phone. They're looking down at the ground. They're not looking up. And so you're right. The cigarette phenomenon with these sightings has nothing to do with that segment of society. It's that moment. They're in the moment of ceremony. They're at one with themselves, and they're at peace, and they're looking around at nature. And that's who's going to catch something for sure.
I feel like Preston Dennett should write a whole book on cigarette smoking sightings. I feel like there's something there.
Cigarette smoking sightings in Arizona from 1970 to 1980. Preston, I'm glad you brought him up. Again, somebody I've known for a long time, but trip on this. I'm going back. I've asked Preston about this a few times over the years. I'm going back to around, if I'm going to pick a date here, I'm going to say 91, 92. Yeah, it's a good chunk of time ago, right? 30, 35 years ago. Out here in California, I live in the Mojave Desert now, but I was in the valley for 40 years, which is about 30 miles from me. Ventura Boulevard is the longest road there. It's one of the longest roads in the world. Right? It's continuous 25 miles of of shops, restaurants, storefronts. At the far end of Ventura Boulevard is a town called Woodland Hills. And I was out there a bunch because I lived out there, but I started to see these flyers on telephone poles. Have you seen a UFO? Call me, with his pull tab with the number. And those were Preston Dennett.
Wow.
Yeah.
Peppering.
Because peppering Woodland Hills with this, because he was living in Topanga at the time, and there was a lot of things that were happening up there. There's a lot of sightings, some that he has had himself, and he wanted to write about it. And so that's what he did. That's real, true boots on the ground. And collectively, he started to build these relationships and get these stories together. But that's how long I've known of Preston Dennett, man. He's been at this for a long time. Is there, leading into this, is there a researcher that has caught your attention more than others over the years? I know that you mentioned Jacques Vallée, and that's really strong. But is there a researcher that has caught your attention?
Yeah, I mean, a few. Obviously, I think Linda Moulton Howe. I think obviously she was like one of the progenitors to like this whole topic. Like she you know, she's a legend in the field. And, you know, a lot of people think she might go off the deep end here and there. Dude, she was like the most tenacious reporter who just, they don't make them like that anymore. You know, going in, guns a-blazing, I'm going to figure out what this thing is. But also, you know, Richard Dolan. I think Richard Dolan, all props to him. He's like he's like the Library of Alexandria of UFOs. And, you know, he's
For sure.
just somebody I really admire as well. Grant Cameron, a Canadian ufologist, I had him on. He's got so many interesting thoughts. And one thing about Grant is that when he says something, it turns out to be like prophetic. Like he'll say something and next thing you know, 5 years later, everybody's talking about it. You know, so he's definitely one that like I pay attention to. If he's saying something, I'm like, okay, I'm taking notice. I'll write that down. But also Preston Dennett. I think Preston is interesting, and he's really good at compiling like all these things, whether it's like the healing, you know, ET experiences or the schoolyard experiences. Like he has all these compilations. And for a researcher like myself, or somebody who's just interested in connecting the dots, I mean, that's just so valuable.
Yeah, I agree on all of those points. Linda, okay, when you look at somebody like Grant, Stanton Friedman is another great example. And even going back to somebody like Lloyd Pye, you know, very, very strong, John Anthony West, which are
John Keel.
historians. Well, Keel too as well. But all of them have had to weather a storm or two, right? And so how do you weather the storm without tapping out? Right? We go, you know what, this isn't worth it. I'm going to go do something else. I just don't dig this, because the community is so passionate about this. They're here for, you know, very deep personal reasons, as am I and you. And when things just go left or right, the community can be very vicious, and you have to weather that storm. And Linda has done that. Richard has done that. Grant has, you know what I mean? To keep your foot on the gas. Stanton Friedman, I mean, when you look at the way that not only he weathered the storm, look at Stanton and like what he went through with, you know, the Michael Shermers of the world, or what he went through with Bob Lazar and other things. It's a crazy community that we have here. But when you look at the body of people's work, and certainly Linda, which you're talking about 4 or 5 decades of compiling this, the same thing with Richard, same thing with Grant. I don't even know Grant's first sighting. When was Charlie Red Star? 1972 or something?
Yes, 50 years ago. Yeah. And to be here and committed to this, I hope that disclosure is something that happens while they're still around. Stanton is not here for this. Jim Mars, you know, not here. And I think that is starting to get tangible. Do you think that disclosure is something that is right around the corner, or is it something longer, or maybe not at all? I think it's not at all. Because I don't think it's anything you expect. You know, in life, like you get to the destination you want, but you get, for the most part, you just don't realize it. Like you get there in a way that you never thought would happen. That's kind of what happens in life with everything, you know, whether you set out to make a career out of your passion or whatever it is. You know, you say one day you wake up and you go, I want to do this for a living. And then you're in the throes of it. You're working on all sorts of adjacent things to try and make it happen. And one day you look around you and you go, oh man, I'm actually doing it. I'm doing the thing. And I didn't even take a second to realize that this is what I wanted. I'm so frustrated with the things around me right now and like all the BS I got to deal with. Like I'm not taking a second to look at this. And I think that that's kind of how disclosure works as well. You know, there are some people who don't have the luxury of ontological shift because they've been thrown into it through an experience. And there are other people who, no matter what you give them, they're just not ready for that. And so I think it's a generational thing. I think give it a few generations and we'll all be on the same page. I think obviously right now is if you look at the direction of people and their belief systems, it feels like more and more are adopting this idea of, oh, we are not alone, or there is another intelligent organism or entity that is interacting with us. Like that number is growing. And so I think that's healthy. To expect it to happen in our lifetime is a natural human desire. It's the same desire that propelled us to make cars, knowing full well that we were destroying the earth and that, Henry Ford was like, this is not sustainable, but we weren't thinking about our grandkids. We were thinking about us in the moment. And we want the change now. And I understand that, but I think it's not healthy. I don't think that that's how change works. I think it's a generational thing and it happens at different levels through time. It's not going to happen on a document, redacted file. It won't happen through scripture. It's not going to, it'll be your own experience and your own throughout your lifetime realizations. And I think that shouldn't be forced upon anyone. There are, if I look at the demographic of the people that watch my videos, it's 60%, 45 and up, right? Mostly 35, like 35 and up is like 80% of my audience, maybe 90. What does that tell you? It tells you, oh, he's not reaching the kids. The kids don't care about disclosure. They don't care about UFOs. No, they don't, because they got stuff to care about. That's very important to them. That has nothing to do with existentialism. They're worried about going on a date. They're worried about being liked by their peers. They're worried about grades, rent, taxes for the first time. They're worried about being bullied. They don't have time for this. And that's okay. And I think that that's healthy. We get to a certain point where we're comfortable in life and now we're doing side quests and we're like, what else is there? And we start getting existential. And I think that that's healthy too. But I think to, one fell swoop this, I don't think it's a great idea. And I don't think everybody's going to kumbaya when that happens. I think that there are some people that will be good with it, some that won't. And it's probably better off happening gradually anyways, kind of the way it has been.
I part of that is just human nature. When I get on my Harley, I don't give a crap about my grandkids. Yeah. That's the last thought on my mind, man. It's all about me.
Yep.
And I think that's human nature. Yeah, for sure. But there's another, strange part to all of this. With all of the media attention, Washington, D.C., hearings, the Pentagon, all of this stuff that has been happening, the world didn't freak out.
Right.
You know what I mean? There's no anarchy. As far as I know, there's no riots in Toronto. You know what I mean? Or anywhere else. And that wasn't surprising to me, but I think that's a pretty good statement to the Rand Corporation or whoever else, wrote a report about the Vatican collapsing. And you know what I mean? Wall Street and financial and the bankings, that the world would end as we know it. Well, we didn't see that happen with the New York Times, did we? Or anything else since then.
Very true. It's very true. Yeah, the news cycle is so fast in today's day and age, like a week and things are old already, I often think about that. Like, I'm sure there are conversations that you've had, obviously, that would change people's lives, listening to them and being like, oh my God, I haven't realized that. Like, that's such a deep philosophical take. I need to sit with this. And before you even have a chance to sit with it, guess what? You got 8 other podcasts to listen to. And let's move on from that, and that's a tough thing. I think about that too. Like, when do I sit with, like this is some deep stuff here. We're just kind of shotgunning through everything here. This is kind of crazy. Like there are a lot of really deep truths that we got to sit with for a second here.
I don't know how you kids deal with it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Yeah. Well, because when I started, I'm the old dude in the room. I get that, man. It's okay. But when I started, there wasn't anything else going on. It was just me, Fade to Black, and I was hosting Coast to Coast, and I did that for like 7 years. And that was it. Podcasting wasn't a word. I'm that ancient, right? The kids just call me dinosaur. That's fine. I don't care. But today, there is a lot out there from some that are very, very talented, but that are curious. And there is a reason why, I don't know how many thousands of podcasts there are right now on the subject, but the world is listening. I have time. You know who I listen to?
Who?
You and AJ.
Really?
Yeah, you and AJ. I don't have the time to do it. Yeah,
it's tough.
But you do a really, really good job with it. And AJ, that. You know what I would do with friggin' AJ? People talk about TikTok addiction and whatever. Friggin' AJ, man, just on my feed in my algorithm, and I'm in bed at 3 a.m. like, okay, one more AJ. God, I got
can't get enough of that hecklefish.
Yeah. You know what? Brilliant, by the way. The hecklefish is brilliant. But you too as well. And I'm not saying this as a fanboy. You have to approach this stuff very, very objectively. And you're trying to get the information out of your guests that you can share and somebody can learn from it. And that's always been your approach. And that's a tough thing for people to do, where they just want to interview the big names and they're in this for this sudden thing sometimes. And the audience doesn't get as much out of it, but you do it correctly. And I admire that.
That means a lot. Thank you.
But now let's talk about Canada.
Okay.
In that, is the Canadian government on top of this like Washington appears to be?
No, not at all. And we just changed leadership too. So we're still kind of figuring out where Carney stands on any of this. Obviously.
Who is Carney?
He's our prime minister.
See, shows you what we know in the United States.
Yeah, he succeeded.
God, it's hot in here. I'm sorry, I just said that. Okay,
Don't worry
Carney's the new PM. Okay.
Yeah, exactly. And I just don't know where we stand on any of that right now. But I know that we do respect, national security, secrecy, all that stuff, because we're part of the Five Eyes coalition. And, we had that flap happen where we had these Chinese spy balloons back in 2023, I think it was. Or 2024, one of those two. And we shot something down in Canada. We didn't shoot it. You guys shot it down in Canada.
How friggin' crazy is that? Missiles being shot over North America.
Yeah.
American Air Force, U.S. Air Force jets in Canada.
Oh, yeah.
Firing
F-22s.
missiles.
Yeah. Bananas. And, for the most part, we got some cool footage of like a balloon deflating. Fine. But the one over Canada, there is a photo that was declassified of the craft. And that was declassified. We were able to disseminate it to the public. And it looks like a horseshoe. It's this weird horseshoe shaped object. It's huge, like white. You see clear, it's a horseshoe. And, I see that and I go, oh, it's good for you, Canada, for like putting out a photo of it. Now I don't know what that object is, if it's like an illusion of like the camera, whatever, but hey, they declassified the photo of the thing that they shot down. I thought that was pretty cool. But other than that, it's really difficult to say. There are so many iconic cases in Canada and so many cases that are not iconic. There's, just like in America, there are thousands of cases of abduction, of sightings, of experience, of encounters, of crashes. And they're, for the most part, I think, just underreported. And
so Canada, the Canadian government, I don't want to be naive here or just sound like I don't know what's going on, but I've tried to follow up with this, and, Grant's a buddy of mine, and he's been on this show, I don't know, 20, 30, 40, 50 times. And I asked him these questions, the same I'm asking of you. I've tried to find if there is some committee up in Canada like Arrow or some official investigative committee of the Canadian government looking into this as we do here. Is it because Canada is just depending on us to handle this, and then they will go, whichever direction that we do? Or is it that they don't have an interest in this from the Canadian citizens?
Perhaps a little bit of both, but definitely I think the United States runs the show when it comes to UFOs. I think worldwide, not just in North America. It seems to be, the stories you hear when there's a down craft or there's a sighting somewhere in Iran or whatever it is, and all of a sudden you get a knock on the door and these guys speak American. You're like, how'd you even know about this? I didn't tell anybody. Do you know what I mean? Like they seem to be everywhere all at once. So there is like this omnipotent, sort of omnipresent presence from the United States. But then there are things historically that Canada that are important that, a lot of Americans might not know. But the Wilbur Smith memo is one that was really interesting. Now, this guy worked for the Department of Transportation back in the 1950. He went down to the United States and he met with officials, came back, wrote a memo, and literally said Vannevar Bush is involved with UFOs. Number one, UFOs are real. Flying saucers are real. Number two, it seems like the phenomenon is mental. Like, that's a crazy thing to say in 1950. And then immediately after, guess what? We're doing MK Ultra experiments at like McGill or whatever. And so there was definitely an interest back then. I would assume that it's under American oversight now. I would assume that, like, we don't do anything unless we're told. Like, if you look at the craft that was downed in Canada, who shot it down?
Yeah. Right.
And who do you think recovered it? It wasn't us. You don't shoot it down and then let us get the craft.
I remember reading that memo the first time. I was like, well, he's not beating around the bush here. He's like the Vannevar Bush, right? He is like very directly stating these things and wanted to have a conversation further about it and was completely shut down.
Yeah, he started a whole thing.
He tried.
It was like a whole UFO committee, and like he was very passionate about it. But that memo is available for people to read through. It's really interesting, but it clearly states from a minister of transport in 1950 that he was in the States and he spoke to these people and he said, yeah, they've got UFOs and flying saucers are real. Get over it. Now let's talk about it.
Yeah, he spent a couple of weeks in Washington, D.C. And okay, let's move on from that for a second, because that memo and other memos for me are so compelling. Not to use that word again. We've used it like 15 times on the show. But the compelling stuff, the receipts, I love that stuff. And then we have this other situation that's going on right now, and that is the scientists that are missing. And this list is growing every single day. We just had, I'm going to run this past you, okay? Check this out. Let me pull this over here. Let's talk about Chinese scientists for a second. They are having the same problem in China as we are having here. And their list is just as long as ours. And I'm going to give you two examples really quick. There's Yan Hong. He's 56, China's top aero engine expert. He died last month in March from an unexplained illness. He worked. Are you ready? Are you sitting down? Are you sitting down, Chris? You ready? Okay. He worked here in the United States at Wright State University between 2005 and 2010. That's right, Wright State, which is part of Wright-Patterson Air Force Base when McCaslin was the director and ran that base. All right. She's a she. Before she returned to China to work with another university over there, part of the United States, which is Northwestern Polytechnical University in China. Her hypersonic research, and this is a quote from China's news service, pushed aerodynamic and thermal boundaries under extreme speeds. That's one. Now, also dying is from a medical episode in South Africa this past February was 68-year-old Zhang Dining. According to the South China Morning Post, I'm quoting, Feng studied super strong materials for spacecraft and advanced engines at Beijing Institute of Technology, Key Defense Research University. And now, we're not the United States. It's not the only one going through these strange times here. What do you make of these reports? And at what point does your magician, sensibilities go, this is beyond coincidence?
Hard to say. I don't doubt that foul play is an option here. I think that we're well aware, being in the UFO space long enough, of reprisals, of threats, of, even worse happening. These are things that have been spoken about by people under oath, even recently, that this was happening. Right. So I don't doubt that there is that. Now, does that account for each one of these people? I have no idea. And I think it would be irresponsible to speculate on all of them. I think that some of them, perhaps, yes, is, especially the ones that are like General McCaslin, I think is very, very strange and obviously very anomalous and something that we should definitely be looking into. But in terms of like what comes out of China, I don't know what to tell you there. It's a communist country.
And to have that direct connection back to McCaslin.
Yeah, definitely, at the very least coincidental, but at the very most, like, very suspicious. I don't know what to make of it, and I don't want to jump to conclusions on these things because there's, one thing. Yeah, I've noticed like recently, like when deaths happen in this space, that's immediately where people go to, right? And unfortunately, for the most part, it's to get clicks.
Yeah, I know.
And that bugs me to no end because that's someone's life right there. And so it's hard to navigate that so soon. But yes, there is a connection and that should be looked at. I just have a hard time diving into a lot of that stuff because at the end of the day, if I say, no, this seems to be just somebody who died. And if you look at 1 million people that work in aerospace, 10 million people that work in aerospace, how many of them die each year? And then you want to like make connections after their death. Like you can do that too, right? That's also on the table. So putting those two things together, it makes it really complicated. And I'm just not, I don't know where to look. I'm not the smartest guy to look into all of this. And I would be afraid that if I started looking into it, I would just start feeding into a conspiracy that might not be 100% accurate. And
that's a conspiracy that you don't want to be true.
Yeah, that's true too. Right. But I also, like it's, I don't want that to be the crux of what I do, but I hope the right people are looking into it. People who will make a difference, people who will, investigate this. I hope those people look into it. I'm a YouTuber.
Yeah, I know.
I shouldn't look into this. It's irresponsible.
Until it resolves itself. Then, because that's what I do. That's when I report on the story.
Sure.
Right?
Yeah. If we find resolve or if someone gets arrested, yeah, absolutely. But until then, who cares what I think? These are dead
we
people.
care.
They have families. You know what I mean?
No, you're smart. Well, let me throw this out there though. With McCaslin, I think he was kidnapped. I think that after all of this, he was disappeared, because if it was something else, a hike, he had a heart attack, he dropped in the dirt in the desert of, in the sagebrush of Albuquerque, we would have found his body by now.
I would assume so, yeah.
Right. So that part, I'm thinking something else. And if that becomes the case, then that's the holy crap moment where we back up and go, oh, okay. Let me tell you why this all caught my attention. When McCaslin disappeared, McCaslin's name, when I interviewed Tom DeLonge on this show, whatever that was, 10 years ago, right? I think he did like 2 interviews and I was one. McCaslin was mentioned, right?
Yep.
And McCaslin's name has been mentioned by so many guests on the show and other researchers for years. His name was not strange to our community. So when that popped up and he's missing, all of us were like, wait a minute. We've been talking about this guy for a very long time. There's that. But a couple of days after the McCaslin thing, there wasn't any missing scientist story yet. But a couple of days later, a couple of miles from my house, right here, was another name from that list. Caltech physicist who worked with the James Webb Space Telescope, the lead guy looking for exoplanets with alien life and water. That was his gig. The top guy, right? Was shot and killed on his front porch.
He was gunned down.
Right. In the mountains. I live in the desert, and right at the edge of where I live is this little, it's called Vallarmo. It's only a half a dozen houses. That's it, but it's called Vallarmo because of the street that it's on. That's where he lived. And I ride past his house, I don't know how many times, because it's on one of my routes. So that caught my attention, Chris, obviously. So now I'm like, okay, that's kind of, but that at that point, the count was only 2.
Mm-hmm.
But it felt strange to me, the timing of both of them and what they were doing. So now here we are today with this list. I don't know.
Yeah, it's difficult to say, but definitely it makes you look back, especially at the work that some of these people did, especially General McCaslin. And there was like an email, I think it was Podesta
and Tom DeLonge.
And Tom DeLonge, where like it was referenced that McCaslin had said that if you want to understand the phenomenon, you have to look at Greek mythology. And that really piqued my interest. Like, whoa, it's a wild place to go. Yeah, I don't know what to say any more of that, but I definitely hope especially for the families, that some resolution occurs and that we, figure out at least what happened, or at the very least, like find a body, because that must be just terrible to have somebody go missing and just not have any answers. And then hopefully, some answers as well. That'd be nice.
Somebody popped this up about a half hour ago in the chat. I want to go back and address it because I do ask this of just about every guest, and I think somebody noticed that I didn't. What is your definition of disclosure?
I don't know. I think that's different for everyone. I really do. I don't see it as, landing on the White House lawn or anything. I don't know, because I think there are people that won't even believe that. And I think they have the right not to believe that, especially with today's day and age. If you don't see it with your own eyes, and even if you do, we're coming up on a turning point in technology here where nothing you see, everything you see can be fake. And so I think even if we have that, most people won't believe it, especially with the growing distrust of the government. And so I think disclosure is a personal journey. I really do. I think it happens to everybody at different stages, and it might not happen to you in this life, and I think that's fine too. I don't think that I don't think we need to rush to that by any means. That's my personal take. I think it's fun asking questions. I think the answers for the most part are inconsequential because they will just provide you with more questions. And so I think the questions are where it's at. The journey, for lack of a better, sort of expression, is where it's at, not the destination.
Yeah, I get that answer. And I've said those words myself. I'll frame it like what you just said. And my testing of the waters with that, especially in front of a large audience in a live venue, dude, you almost get booed off the stage. And the reason, the reason for that, oh, trust me, I've been right there. I remember Jacques and I and a few others, this big panel, and there was like 2,000 people there, 2,500. I'm hosting this thing. And I hit this question with everybody. And then in the audience, you could feel it. It was this grumbling going on. And the reason for that is that version of disclosure that you're referencing, that I've referenced, that's not what people need. They need some live feed from the Oval Office. We're not alone. They're here.
I don't think they do.
I don't
think they do need that. I think you get that and then you realize you didn't need it. I think that's the truth. As with everything in life, you get something and then you're not satisfied because it wasn't about getting the thing. And you won't realize it until you get it. But yeah.
That sounds good, Chris. But no. And the reason for that, and I'm not saying that's my position. Mm-hmm. I'm saying that for the vast amount of people that have had experiences, maybe abduction or this or that, where they have been silenced and ridiculed, they don't talk to their family or anybody else because of fear and of embarrassment and everything else, being told that they're crazy. They need that official, definitive, this is it, so they can turn to their husband and go, see, damn it, this is what I've been, that's what they need. And anything short of that is not good enough. And I respect their view. I totally get that. I do. Yeah. Look, I just told you about this beer can thing, right? 500 feet tall. Do I need disclosure? I've already had it. Mm-hmm. Right. But that's not good enough for the vast majority of people out there. They need to be able to turn to somebody else, their employer, right? School, whatever it is, the people around, that's what they need so that they can turn around and now speak about this.
Yeah. We also needed a hearing, and we got that, and we got another one and another one. And it's, I think for the most part, we just keep going down this road, and it helps with every testimony, with every sighting, with every little video or photo. I think our conviction grows, and I think we come more at peace with this idea. I understand people who've had experiences want answers, and that I respect. The one I asked this to all the abductees or experiencers that I've talked to. Mm-hmm. I said, if you could ask one question to these beings, what would it be? And it's always the same question, whether it's Whitley Strieber, or whether it's Peter Curry, or any of these people, or Travis Walton, or it's why me? Right? That's all they want to know. Why me? And I get that. That must be really hard to go to bed with at night because you have nothing. You're left with, just like we spoke about at the top of this episode and watching Fire in the Sky, you're not left with any resolve. And so I understand seeking that for them. Mm-hmm. For me, I'm okay with just, continuously asking questions and learning a little bit more about something. I think a new question for me is gold. A new question. Like a new question. We're sitting here asking the same questions. Over and over and over and over. And we talk to people and it's the same questions, the same stories, the same sightings over and over and over. But what about a new question? How exciting is that?
I'll give it to you right now. You ready?
I'm ready.
And you're more than welcome to borrow it. Here's the question for ET. how did you survive?
Great question.
Because that's our problem. We need to figure out how we can be around in 500 years or next week, right? How did they overcome that part of their evolution so they could continue to evolve and eventually get here? How did you survive?
Question.
That's my, so it's your question now. You can have it.
Amazing.
I totally agree with you. And that type of, refocus, is it disclosure? Is it exposure? How are we approaching this? Well, I think the big fundamental, the basic of all of this is, how do you survive? How many civilizations out there? There's got to be millions that just went beep, beep, here and gone. Beep, beep, just gone. Got to a certain point of technology and just burned themselves out for whatever reason. So how do you survive? I don't think Neil deGrasse Tyson needs new answers to physics. He wouldn't understand it, or anybody else. No, just tell us how we could get out of our own way. How did you do it? And tell us how to do it.
And how do we do it alongside AI? How do we survive alongside AI?
See, existential, right? It just piles right on top of it. So, Chris, great conversation tonight, my friend.
Yeah, I had a blast.
Just awesome. Yeah, so cool. How often do you crank out content, and where can everybody chase you down?
Every Friday we drop a new video. So whether it's a read through, whether it's a guest, Area 52 on YouTube and all socials. Check us out.
Thank you so much, Chris. Behave and be well, right? And keep doing what you're doing, man. I really respect you. Thank you,
Jimmy,
so much.
I appreciate you and I respect you, and I want to thank you so much for being just the best host and being so kind, generous, have great questions. You're compassionate. Just really want to take a second to say thank you for everything that you're doing as well.
All right. Keep rolling that rock uphill, Chris. All right.
All right.
I'll talk to you. Thank you so much. Chris Ramsay, everybody. Area 52. We ran a couple of minutes over. Thank you so much, Chris. And again, Chris's links for his YouTube are below over on our website and throughout our social media. Easy to get to. And I'm just letting everybody know right now, I'm a huge fanboy, and I've been checking out all of his content. It's so well done. And I want to go to Montreal, pack his set up and steal it, bring it down here and put it behind me. Yeah, Chris. You got that, right, Chris? You got that? Okay. I'll talk to you. All right, everybody. I'll see you tomorrow night. And tomorrow night, Paul Hynek is here. We're going to be talking about the DMT hyperspace. All of that and much more tomorrow night on Fade to Black. But for now, all I've got is go Backley Tapping. Fade to Black is produced by Hilton J. Palm, Renee Newman, and Michelle Freed. Special thanks to Bill, John, Dex, Jessica, Dennis, and Kevin. Webmaster is Drew the Geek. Music by Doug Aldrich. Intro, Space Boy. Fade to Black is produced by KJCR for the Game Changer Network. This broadcast is owned and copyrighted 2024 by Fade to Black and the Game Changer Network, Inc. It cannot be rebroadcast, downloaded, copied, or used anywhere in the known universe without written permission from Fade to Black or the Game Changer Network. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. Go Backley Tappy.